So I am Kurt, like she said, and I do restoration of windows, gravestones, consulting, all over New England, all over New York State, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, wherever I have to go, I will go. So today we are going to learn all we can about windows, and we are going to focus on the windows in the building here. The building here needs a lot of glazing work, so we're going to get our hands really into glazing today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're all going to walk around together on the outside of the building, and we're going to look at the actual windows and the parts and just get familiarized with what a window is. So this is a window. So a window is made up of a window jamb, which holds the window in place, and in this case, two sash, an upper sash and a lower sash, making this actually a single hung window. Single hung because the upper sash is fixed in place. It does not actually operate or move. A double hung window, both sash are operational and they're on a rope pulley system. So an upper sash on this one is fixed in place by this bottom stop. These windows originally, I believe, were double hung. And I think that these bottom pieces were added on to fix them in place in the last 100 years. I think when the actual windows were replaced. So these windows are not original to the building. However, the glass is original to the building. So when they replaced the window sash, they popped out all the old, wonky, amazing, beautiful glass and preserved it into the new sash. So you can see on here, a window is made up of rails and stiles. So you have a bottom rail, meeting rail, top rail, and then stiles. And then the glass is all separated by muntins. And muntins are the pieces that actually hold the glass in place. And on them, you will find there is glazing, which in this is popping off quite a bit. And then there are sills. And sills are always slanted away from the building to shed water. And a big issue with sills over the years is they get weather checks. And if you all want to come up here and look, you can see the sill has big cracks all through it. And that's very common to see, just from water, from snow, from weather, from rain, all being sitting on that sill. And it's an easy thing to fix, and we'll go over that later when we go back inside. But just wanted to point it out. Well, we are going to go around to the back of the building and attempt to pull that window out. Once again, single hung, not double hung at all. I'll go into more detail when we go inside and pull windows, because then we can all get around and actually see it. But I'll talk right now a little bit when I'm doing this, because it's hard to see in here when I'm doing it. So the window is held in place by an exterior stop. This is called a stop, a piece of a strip of wood. And on the interior, there's also an interior stop holding that end, like a channel that the window goes up and down in. This one is missing its stop on the interior. It's just got nails holding it in, which is pretty common. So I'm going to just pull those nails quickly and yank the sash out quick. Now for the purpose of today, we're only going to work on the upper sash of this window, not the lower sash, because the lower sash needs more work than we can actually get to today. So this was what they used as an interior stop. It's just a shingle. Yeah.
Come across quite a bit.
We're going to come across it here.
Yeah.
Most every window in the front of the building is painted shut.
That's a pretty common
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it myself. It's all in the pot.
So we have our sash out. So this one is in pretty good shape. You can see it's not really rocking. It's the joinery is all nice and tight. So today we'll be able to work on this and get it reglazed.
So when I'm reading about a sash and blind mill or something from the old days, they're producing that frame.
Yes, sash and blinds are shutters, but they called them blinds back then.
Okay.
Kurt, why is that one more complicated than this one?
So this one, the bottom rail is very loose. The joinery is not very tight. You can see it's kind of separating. So it has to all be repinned. So windows are mortise and tenon joinery. And you can see you've got a tenon sticking through a mortise right here. You can see the end of it right there. And then they're held together early on with wooden pegs, kind of trapezoidal, not completely round. And then later on by steel pins. And this has steel pins in it. And the steel pins rust, you can see right here. And when they rust, they get brittle and they break. Or sometimes the tenon can break where the pin goes through it. So on this case, most likely, the tenon has broke. You can look inside there and see the tenon is all cracked and kind of beat up.
What kind of wood would be used for these windows?
Historically, most likely pine, but today you don't want to use pine.
Too soft.
So historically, pine was all from old growth virgin forests. And so the pine had this very dense, tight grain, and it lasted for a very long time. But today's pine is all farmed. It's no longer old growth, and so it doesn't last very long. You'll get like 10 years out of it, and then it rots away. So today they're doing things out of mahogany, which is very rot resistant, and it lasts a lot longer. So we're not going to tackle this today because this requires, a Dutchman, a wooden Dutchman, which, so for example, with this right here, if we were going to work on it, we would have to pop out all of the pins on the window, pop out the glass first, and then actually pop every pin out of this frame and pull it completely apart into pieces. And then we'd have to do a wooden Dutchman, which is where you take new wood and you cut out the bad wood in this joint and you redo this joint with new wood and you glue it all together and make a brand new corner.
What is the difference between a bottom sash and an upper sash?
Yeah, so
Because you might take all your windows apart, and then if you're like me and perhaps haven't labeled things all and things get shifted around, it's good to know how to tell the difference.
Yeah, so you want to always label your windows when they come out. Especially the opening of where they come out of, because every opening is different. If the window's over here, they're not going to go back just automatically. So a lower sash versus an upper sash. So they both have meeting rails, and in New York State we follow the New York layout versus the Boston layout. So there's a little difference in windows. In New York, the meeting rail is about an inch and an eighth width. The side stiles are roughly 2 inches on both. And then the lower sash has a wider bottom rail. So this is about 3.5. An upper sash in this form. So you have your bottom meeting rail, which is inch. Your upper sash is the same dimension as your side stile, so 2 inches. Also, your bottom sash is angled to match the sill, which is typically about a 9 to 11 degree angle. Any other questions on bottom, top, Dutchman, anything?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking storm windows, which are not double, I mean, they're
just one unit?
yes. I mean, we have some that have not been off of the house in the 47 years that we've been there.
Yeah.
But I mean, they look good.
Yeah. As
So
long
if
as they're
it
not
ain't broke,
rotted.
don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, storm windows are great. Storm windows, depending on the kind that you have, if you have traditional wooden storm windows, they sit inside this little slot here, and this is actually too small. You couldn't get a storm window on this window. But they sit right in flush to your exterior trim.
So my conclusion is it took longer to make the windows than it did to build the house.
It takes some time. They don't happen overnight. Typically, when I restore a window from start to finish, it's roughly 40 to 50 man hours for one window. So we're going to do a very, very tiny bit today in 6 hours. To show people how to take a window that's painted shut and make it open and close again. And we have 2 hours, is that right? So in 2 hours we can do that. When you're removing interior stop, you want to always start off with a stiff putty knife. And then you'll gradually move to a small pry bar, but a pry bar is thicker than a stiff putty knife. And I have a better one in here. If you go straight to a pry bar, you are prone to denting the molding and messing the profile up. And we're always trying in preservation to not screw up original fabric. So you can see how that is very thin compared to that.
And what is that particular knife called?
Putty knife?
It's a putty knife.
Just a putty knife.
But where would one find that?
Any hardware store.
That thin? Yeah, I guess it's a normal one.
Yeah.
It just looks a little shiny. It's like it's something different.
Yeah.
But you
It's
want
just
a
a
metal one, right? Not this plastic one.
Not a plastic one. And actually the older ones are better. I have some. Here's one. This one's really nice and stiff, and that's probably 60 years old. But they're a thicker gauge of metal, and they stand up better than these. This is maybe a 1-year-old one. So I think this one, actually let's do over here this one. I think we'll do this one, because it won't be as stuck. That one was just freshly painted this year, so which means we have more paint to peel off of that one. So you can see it does not open at all. And they had a nail propped in there. We're going to take that out. So we're first going to take off that interior stop. So we're going to take our putty knife. We're going to just wiggle it into there and kind of pry a little bit. Now these stops are all replaced and they're all new, so there's no molding profile, they're just square stock. But oftentimes this is actually going to be a piece of molding that is decorative, where we can now wiggle this in without causing any damage. And you'll hear the paint start to, that's not the wood cracking, that's all the paint seal cracking. And somebody used the old cut nails to put this back on. That's nice. So there's nice cut nails. Now this is just square stock, so we're going to know what it came from. But typically you want to get in the habit of always labeling things. So we'll say this is the left side. And with the cut nails, so typically you're not going to find cut nails when you pull these out. You're going to just find typical finished nails. And when you have a typical finished nail, you never want to, we're not going to do it on these, but you don't want to take a hammer and knock them out like this. You want to always pull them from the back. By pulling from the back straight through, you're not going to pop out the face of the wood. But with a cut nail, it has a big head. We can't pull it straight through. We're going to have to pop it out, which means we might, because there's paint on there, we might pop off some of the wood.
Do you find that people are getting more and more sort of aware that it's better to save their windows? Do you find the attitude changed a little bit?
I do. In the last 10 years, there's been so much advocacy for them. I mean, in the last 10 years, I guess it's a two-way thing. in the last 10 years, there's an advocacy towards windows, so preservationists are all aware about how to save them. But we've also have a lot of non-preservationists who are rapidly vinylizing. So people are more aware in that category of people.
Well, now there's more, the new energy efficiency stuff pays for window replacement.
Yeah.
Like at HSL, we were like, when we saw that in the package.
Yeah. But there's been a lot of, I mean, the Preservation League a decade ago or so, I think they added windows as one of their 7 to save. And the National Trust did a huge window campaign probably a decade ago. So there's been a lot of people out there advocating for windows. So we'll just clean up all we can clean up. Now these windows, I mentioned earlier how they were wooden pinned historically, and you always want to have like a multifaceted wooden peg, not a dowel. These are new windows, they're not original, and so they have wooden dowels, and you can see they're popping out because they're not multifaceted. So we're going to just push it back in. So these windows were painted on the bottom. We talked earlier about whether or not we paint the bottoms or not. And they haven't rotted, so.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So we'll put this back in. So it's a bottom sash. The bottom rail is thicker than the meeting rail. So we know this is the bottom. And it's also beveled to match the sill. And the glazing side goes out. And I don't feel it catching anywhere. So we're going to just put our stops back on. And when I'm popping these nails out, I have my finger down below, kind of trying to hold that wood from splintering out.
Is it just the seal of the paint here that was preventing you from opening?
Most likely. The interior paint. Because the exterior paint was like non-existent.
So would you scrape that sort of inside of the stop here, like all like this or this?
So that is not the friction point. The friction point is here. And so I often will scrape if there's a lot of paint on it. This doesn't have much paint on it. It's pretty much bare wood. So typically you'll be using just modern day finishing nails. But since we have these nice cut nails that we're going to use, when you install things with cut nails, it's important how you put them in. So cut nails, if you look at a cut nail, when they're cut on the machine, one side is tapered. You can see it gets fatter as it gets to the top.
Here's a big one.
Okay, yeah. Tapered and fat to the top. But the other side is the same dimension. And so when you put a cut nail into wood, you want to always make sure that the tapered side is not going against the grain, because it'll split the wood as you hammer it in, and you'll pop your wood apart. So you want to always have it with the grain like that, upright, so that it's going in and driving that grain in together. And when you're reinstalling interior stops, you want to have your interior stop at a happy medium where it's not too close to the window where it's binding, but it's not too far away that you have a lot of rattle and wind blowing through. Now, when I'm doing this, I never finish them off. I leave them proud a little bit, because as you're doing this, if it's a little bit too snug as you're doing this, you want to be able to pull them out pretty easily. So you're constantly opening and closing and making sure that you're not too snug. And I like to always do the top first, because the window's not there. I don't like swinging a hammer next to precious glass. And we're not using the same nail holes because we want them to have a nice hold to them. Now, typically, I'd have like a block of wood with me. I don't have one, so we're going to make do. It's probably not big enough. We're going to just use that to hold the window open. Before we sink them, we're going to just test the window. And it's working beautifully. So now we'll go and set all those nails. You down here have a weight pocket, and it's typically underneath your bottom sash. So you would take your windows out, and if it's a double hung window, you take both sash out to do it. And so both sash would come out, just like we just took these out, take out the interior stop. But with a roped window, you have a parting stop. So that center strip of wood with the duckbill vice grips, to pull that out, pull the upper sash all the way down and get it out of there and clean them up like we've done these. Once you have them out, on the side of the window sash, there's a hole with a channel, a groove on the side. So you're gonna, hopefully your pulleys are not painted and seized full of paint. But if they're all painted and seized, if you have an older style pulley from like the 19th century, you'll find two screws on the top and bottom. You can remove those screws and you can actually pull your pulley out and you can strip all the paint off of it. I stick it in a crock pot overnight with water and fabric softener and then a wire brush, and I clean them all up. And then I dip them into linseed oil and then pull them out so they don't rust on me so quickly. Then you can reinstall those. If they are fully operational, where they have paint on them, you don't have to remove the paint on them. They can stay the way they are. Then you are going to open your weight pocket, which is underneath your bottom sash. You'll have a little block of wood, and sometimes they're hiding underneath layers of paint. But if you can remove the paint with a heat gun, you'll find typically one screw holding in the upper part of the block. If you pull that one screw out, it's like a trapezoidal weight pocket door. And so it's pressure fit into a trapezoid. So you'll very carefully wiggle it out of there. Sometimes, carpenters always do different things. Sometimes they're actually stuck on a couple of nails up top. Sometimes there's a little wedge of wood that's nailed in the back. Depends on the carpenter. So you remove that, and then you have access to your weight pocket. So you'll pull your weight out of the bottom of that pocket. If you see any kind of loose plaster dust or a mouse nest, you'll want to get rid of that stuff and pull it out of there. And then you will cut a piece of rope, typically the entire length of stool to top up here. So you'll take a piece of rope, stretch it out like this, hold that mark, cut it, and I have sash rope here. And when you're using sash rope, you always want to use all cotton or all hemp sash rope, all natural. You don't want to use like clothesline rope because it has nylon or polyester in it, and over time it'll stretch. And if it stretches, your weights will bottom out on the bottom of the weight pocket, and they won't work properly. So you'll stretch it out to there, cut it, and that's your length you want for that window. Then you will tie this around. There's a little loop on the top of your weight. You're going to put this through that loop. You're going to tie it off there. And then you're going to, well, before you do that, you're going to feed this through. So you're going to feed it through your pulley down to your weight, and then tie it to your weight. And you'll have the other end of it, you'll just tie a knot. I typically do 2 knots on top of each other because it's bigger. Like that. So it's a double knot on top of a knot. And you will slide that into the hole on the side of your window sash and let this run up the channel. So it'll be in your sash like this. And once that's in there, then you put your windows back just like we did this one. Slide the window back in, put your interior stops back on, put your weight pocket door back on, put the one little screw in there, and you're good to go. But the sash weights have to be the right size weight.
Right, they have that
So they're
proportional to the window.
Yeah, so your weights are the same weight as your window. Well, divided in half. So you're going to have 2 weights. So if your window is 10 pounds, you have a 5 pound and 5 pound. If you don't have that equal weight, then when you open your window, it's not going to stay where it's going to want to fall, or it's going to want to creep up, or.
It's okay if it's kind of rusty though, the weights, right?
That's fine. No one's going to see it.
Yeah. And the ones that are the chains, that rope's just a different type of pulley system, right? Or,
Same pulley system.
oh, so you could use chains then instead?
Yep, rope is better than the chains.
Okay.
You don't really need chains. Chains are for like huge industrial daylight factories.
Okay.
But for a home with a basic window like this, you just need rope.